What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of a podcast with Upside. I'm your host, Jay Felicio. You can find me on Twitter at GMenJ. And with me, as always, is my partner in crime, the Falcon to my Winter Soldier, Mr. Dan Turner. How are you, Dan?
So which one is Falcon and which one is Winter Soldier?
Well, if I say the Falcon to my Winter Soldier, that means you're the Falcon and I'm the Winter Soldier. So I figured, stay on topic. We went WandaVision last week. Well, they dropped the trailer.
The MCU theme we're establishing over the past couple of weeks. Doing good though.
Well, you can follow Dan on Twitter at EagleDanFF. Tonight we're going to be going over the NFC South with a very special guest, somebody who I consider a friend, Jeff Haseley from FootballGuys.com. Thanks for joining us, Jeff. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you coming on. Let's see. Wow. You can find me at footballguys.com. I do a lot of work there. And right now in the off season, I'm doing a lot of work with rankings, rookie rankings, dynasty rankings, doing some off season behind the scenes work with them. Plus, I just found out that I got a new job as a graphic designer.
Congratulations on that. That's so awesome.
Congrats.
Which is, the sports apparel company. So that's all new. That's huge for me. And so soon, hopefully, you'll be able to see some of my work on some merchandise there. If that's indeed
so awesome.
Path that I'm going to take. So
might have to get you to autograph some stuff for me, if you get your first shirt out or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But for now, footballguys.com. We're really just kind of looking into the draft season. Of course, it's dynasty season now that the football season is over. Super Bowl's done. Rookie rankings. It's all about now figuring out where these prospects are going to go in the draft. So lots of talk about mock drafts, about free agency signings, who's going where, and who's leaving teams. There's a lot going to happen in the next month or so as we get prepared for the draft. So yeah.
Yep. And like we were talking about before the show, it is very early to be talking about a lot of this stuff. But that's half the fun, too, is the speculation, figuring out who's going to go where, what pieces, and how it's going to impact fantasy teams. So as Dan, our good buddy Simon would say, let's jump right in. And we'll head over to the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I tell you what, even though it was a good game, but from a fun standpoint, it just wasn't that fun to watch. I didn't think, at least. It was, Kansas City was really never in it, just from the get-go.
No, not really. I mean, they had a chance, right? I think it was 7-0, then 7-3, and then the things just kind of unraveled. But the entire playoffs, in my opinion, were kind of a disappointment because it seemed like there were more games than not where the game was decided by the third quarter.
Yeah.
And there wasn't.
And we got a lot of the matchups we wanted too, and it's just the games just didn't live up to the hype. Like if you would have said, Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, everybody would have taken that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, the Final Four was put in place pretty well, and it could have been anybody. I thought that for sure that we would have a good matchup, and it just didn't come to fruition. So a little bit disappointing in that regard, but it's still the Super Bowl, and it's still pomp and circumstance and halftime shows and la. So
Hey, I didn't think we were going to get a full season, so I am more than happy to get a Super Bowl. But with that being said, it sounds like he's not going to. But Jeff, we'll start with you. Do you think Tom Brady retires, or do you think the Bucs have a chance to repeat?
I think they always have a chance to repeat if Tom Brady's the quarterback. I mean, come on. Yeah. Shoot, the guy has started. I couldn't believe this stat. The guy has started in 18% of all Super Bowls ever played.
That's nuts.
Isn't that nuts? That's absolutely insane, crazy. So no, I don't know. I don't think that Tom Brady will retire. I think he's going to play at least one more year. We've been saying that for 4 years now?
Yeah, exactly.
At least one more year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he signed through the end of 2021, and I don't see him going up against that. I think that he'll be back. Will Rob Gronkowski be back? That's yet to be determined. We know that he's likely not going to retire. I think he said that he wanted to play next year. The question is now with who? My guess is that he'll try to get in the same way he did as well with earlier here with Brady and hopefully take a decent deal with Tampa Bay and stay with the Bucs. I'm not sure if he would want to go elsewhere because Brady was the reason why he was brought there, why he came out of retirement in the first place. Why would he go somewhere else right now? It doesn't make sense.
I'm with you on that. I think he's going to stick back with Tampa as well if he comes back, which it sounds like he will.
If he comes back. All right. And then you've got Leonard Fournette. Where's Fournette going to go? I think that he did enough this season, especially also in the playoffs, to warrant some interest from other teams. And I'm not sure if Tampa can sign him. I mean, they got a lot of people that they have to deal with. They have to decide on Shaq Barrett. They got Levante David. I already mentioned Gronk. And Ndamukong Suh is a free agent.
Chris Godwin.
And then Fournette. Yeah. So there's some questions. And you got Chris Godwin, there's still some questions on what Tampa's going to do. They can't keep everyone, and I'm not sure if Fournette is in the running there. They've got Ronald Jones, they have Keyshawn Vaughn as well. So, and if they decide to draft a running back, which now you can draft running backs late, in like the 5th or 6th round, that you can, have as a specific type of niche skill back who can come in and just kind of grow and develop in the team and be on a really cheap deal. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Fournette stays with the Bucs. That's my opinion. I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The only way I think that he would wind up staying with the Bucs if he wants to take a discount, and I just don't see that happening. I was looking it up earlier. He had over 300 yards for the postseason, where all regular season he only had 367 yards. So he matched almost a season total in these games. 4 touchdowns. This is his chance to cash in. So I can't fault the guy if he decides to go for the money, which if I was in that same position, I would too. But he said that, he'd like to come back. I'm with you. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to be willing to spend a whole lot of money on him. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think they let him go. I think, there's like Jeff said, there's so many people they need to re-sign, plus, any free agents they want to go after. And they spent the 76th pick on Keyshawn Vaughn. So it'd be, pretty much a waste if they don't at least see what he has behind Ronald Jones. I think that Brady can definitely come back. He threw for over 4,600 yards and 40 touchdowns at age 43. So at this point, just keep playing until he falls over or something. I don't know. I don't know anymore. He's the only athlete that has been able to completely ignore Father Time in the history of sports. So at this point, just let him keep doing it.
Yep. And thank goodness for the heroes of Eli Manning and Nick Foles. Otherwise, he'd have 10 Super Bowls. He'd have one for each finger. So, could you imagine that?
That's actually interesting for you to bring that up because, if it wasn't for those guys, wow.
And I mean, how close was he really to having 10? Both Giants games were miracles that the Giants won. Yeah. And anytime the Eagles win, it's a miracle. So, I mean, he was that close.
Seattle too.
Yeah, should have, but Pete Carroll.
And the Atlanta game where they gave up that 24-point lead.
The first Panthers Super Bowl. If John Casey wouldn't have kicked that out of bounds, he probably wouldn't have won.
Every single break has gone for Tom Brady, basically.
Yeah,
that's right. A tuck rule. Hello. Yeah, that's like the biggest break ever in NFL.
I remember where I was at my buddy's house, and I could not believe that. I remember vividly where I was when that happened.
I remember thinking, what?
Yeah.
How is that not a fun? And if I was Charles Woodson, I would have been like beside myself. Like, what in the world did this just happen? Wow. Yeah. And then when Vinatieri kicks that 45-yard field goal in overtime in like half a foot of snow, I mean that was impressive. I mean, that's going back, man. Even though it's the Patriots, which I just can't stand. Growing up a Bills fan, you know why? It was amazing to see like that whole game, everything all transpire there, including that last kick. But who knew we would be talking about the tuck rule Patriots here?
Yeah, I know. I told you we get off on a tangent, and sometimes that happens. Yeah. But we got a couple people saying hey in the chat. Our guy Marty said congratulations, Jeff. Shane said hey to you guys and also me, and our good friend Typhoon is in there with us as well. So that's the first time, it's the first time you're on the show with us, but you and I have done a couple of I know you've done a bunch with him, but we did some streams together with our guy Typhoon. So he's a great dude.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks guys for coming on board and for the nice gestures and rock on. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We got Matt Matt Donnelly, who's a Raiders fan, so he definitely feels the pain there. So our guy, yeah,
that's right.
And our guy Mike wants to know, you think Fournette potentially to Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, he could go to Seattle, could go to Buffalo. That's an option there. I could see that happening. Seattle, they have some decisions to make with, of course, Chris Carson is a free agent, so he could go elsewhere. Rashard Penny is coming back to health. I mean, they have some options, but you know that they're going to want to target somebody. So that's a possibility, especially maybe not as a high-end type of free agent running back, like Fournette. I could see him fitting in there. I could also see him fitting in with Pete Carroll. So
yeah, I could see that.
Interesting thought process there, going to Seattle. What were we going to say?
I was going to say, what do you think about Miami? You think if they wind up not drafting a running back, I could see them looking to use the draft capital to shore up the line and get a wide receiver and then sign in a free agent running back.
Yeah, that's possible, unless, of course, they don't want to spend a lot of money and choose a pick, which they have multiple picks for Miami, and go after a running back there. I also like what they have, right? I mean, they've got Gaskin as well as Ahmed. So, I mean, there's some options there, of course. We also need to figure out what running back is going to mesh well with Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it takes a while for, first of all, the offense also has to figure out what they're going to do with him. But the running back, I think, too. I mean, you can't necessarily just automatically put in any running back into a system with his style of offense and expect the same. So it's going to be a work in progress, I think, as far as who the running back is and the successful running back in Miami as a result of what the offense is going to be like with Tua.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dan, what are your thoughts on Fournette to Seattle or somewhere else?
I think that as you go through like these Carson and Gaskin, and even in Buffalo with Zach Moss, as you go through all these names, you can hear all the like Zach Moss truthers and Gaskin truthers just like crying and like screaming out in terror that Fournette gets signed by their team and completely destroys their value. I think honestly he'd be best in Seattle. I think that
I do like that call.
I think with Wilson and the receiver core there, that would be the best spot for him. I don't think that Buffalo doesn't really, Miami doesn't really need the type of back that he is, because they pretty much have that type of back already on the roster. So I think as far as landing spot goes, Seattle would be the best bet.
I like that too. We got a couple other guys. Our buddy Jeff said 2 Jeffs make a right, so it's a good dude. And then Owen, who has been with us since we were Thursday War Room Live, so he tunes in a lot with us. So I just want to say hello to you, Owen, as well. Appreciate you tuning in. And then Marty said, Jeff, he will never forget the Crowder call that you made when we were on with Typhoon, which I will give you. You were the only one that was on, and me and Typhoon were like, nah, that ain't going to happen. What do you have, 2 touchdowns, like 20-something points?
Yeah. That was just I just happened to be the right place, right time, right call there. So, Marty, I'm thankful that you were able to come through with that pick. I mean, I made the call, you made the decision to play him. So
yeah,
that's good on you too.
Yeah. Anyway. And Jeff, who is a Buffalo Bills fan, says that Buffalo needs a fast back. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, they really haven't had a fast back since CJ Spiller. So absolutely, I think that would work really well in their offensive style. So yeah.
Speaking of CJ Spiller,
we'll be talking about CJ Spiller here this week. Now there's a back with upside.
There it is.
There it is. Speaking of CJ Spiller, it's interesting that there's another Clemson running back coming out this year. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. With Travis Etienne. I mean, we could see him going to Buffalo, right? That's possible.
Yeah, depending on how things shake out, I could definitely see that happen. Well, with the Buccaneers, we still have to decide where Chris Godwin's going to end up. Do you think that, Dan, we'll start with you on this. Do you think that he's going to get tagged? Think he'll sign a long-term deal? You think he goes elsewhere?
I think he goes elsewhere. I think that they're not going to want to spend the amount of money either to tag him or sign him to a long-term deal. He's pretty much, depending on who you ask, the top receiver going to market this year. So I think that, they drafted Tyler Johnson last year. They have Scotty Miller and Mike Evans. So they don't. It's not like the wide receiver room is going to like disintegrate if Godwin leaves. So as far as landing spot, I think he might go to either the Colts or the Jets. I think would be the best one. The Jets really need that number one guy, and the Colts with him and Pittman would be fantastic combo for when Carson Wentz gets traded there.
Yeah, I've seen that the Colts have had a lot of interest in Chris Godwin. That'd be a nice 1-2 punch. Chris Godwin and Michael Pittman. You have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. I think that he's going to stay. I think that they're going to tag him. I don't think they're going to sign him to a long-term deal. I think they know Brady wants to go back-to-back, win another one, and I think that he's going to want all the weapons he can have. And he's not worried about having too many wide receivers. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought Antonio Brown in midseason as well. So I think that he's going to bring him back. And like Owen said, Bruce Arians said that his ass isn't going anywhere for a little coach speak. So we'll see. Jeff, what are your thoughts? You think Chris Godwin's going to stay or go?
I think he stays as well. I think they're going to at least try to sign him. And other than Mike Evans, they don't really have a big name receiver that's on a current contract. I mean, they have Justin Watson, which you mentioned, Tyler Johnson as well. But those aren't like big name guys. Could they develop and turn into something? Yeah. But I mean, I think they want to have that second receiver along with Evans. And as far as Godwin's concerned, I mean, where does he want to go? He wants to go with a good quarterback and a team that could win. Hello, that's Tampa. Yep. And I mean, unless that offer from Miami or, as you mentioned, Dan, Indianapolis is just too good to pass up, I think Godwin stays. Now, if they tag him, he doesn't really have a choice, right?
Right. That's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to try to figure out a long-term deal, and it's not going to be enough money. And I think they just wind up tagging him, knowing that Brady doesn't have too many years left. And then, I feel like I've been saying that my entire life, but, it seems as if Brady doesn't have too many years left, but we'll see what happens. But
yeah,
we will move on to the New Orleans Saints, who are definitely going to have a little bit of turnover this year. Supposedly, Drew Brees hasn't officially retired, but it sure looks like it the way that last game ended and the embrace that he and Brady had, him and his wife had. So the easy question right here, Jeff, who's the quarterback for the Saints next year?
That's a good question. I mean, you have to look at Taysom Hill. It was Hill who got the nod over Jameis Winston when Drew Brees was out for a few weeks. And, I mean, in 4 starts...
For some reason, we still don't know why that happened. But
in 4 starts, Hill was 3-1. He had a 71.9% completion rating, or percentage, I should say. He had 8 touchdowns, 4 passing and 4 rushing. So he averaged 2 touchdowns a game for him. He was able to move the ball. It's obvious that Sean Payton likes what he sees in Hill because he was his option over Winston. And we've also heard him say, "Oh, Jameis Winston's great, right? We want to have him too. He's a key piece, right?" We keep on hearing this, but Hill is the one who's getting all of the action. So I'm kind of leaning that it's going to be Taysom Hill. Why else would they put him in place to start rather than Jameis Winston? They both have had the opportunity to, learn and understand the offense and practice. It's not like Winston was held out, I think it's going to be Taysom Hill as the starter next year.
Dan, what do you think?
I disagree. I think it's going to be Winston. I think that while it's true that Taysom had, a good record and they had a good record when he was starting for Brees this past year, it became pretty apparent towards the end, at least to me, towards the end of the year, that you could see the kind of limitations he has as an actual quarterback. Once you take away, his rushing, he can't really throw his way to a win. I think that Jameis, if he can, he has the physical talent to be a QB. If he can cut down the turnovers that he had in Tampa, and with Sean Payton, he's good at really good at developing quarterbacks. I think that Winston offers more upside than Hill for the long term.
Yeah, and two, Jameis had LASIK when he left Tampa, so we haven't really got to see if that makes a difference or not. So
That's true.
Maybe it could. I think it's buying into the narrative a little bit, but I'm gonna kind of go in between both you guys. I think they're gonna sign Jameis. I think Jameis is gonna be the starter. And I think Sean Payton likes to think that he's the smartest guy in the room. So I think it's going to be like a 60-40 split where Jameis is the starter, but he's going to do similar to what he did with Taysom Hill this year with Breeze, but more of Taysom Hill. So not quite as much with Breeze being the full-time starter and Taysom Hill getting sprinkled in. I think it's going to be used a lot more.
Do you think there's a non-zero chance that Drew Brees comes back?
I tell you what, the longer that he waits to say it, I'm really starting to think that he's considering it, seeing how he heals up, how he feels. I was expecting him to wait till after the Super Bowl, day or two later. I thought he would have retired by now. I've got this inkling that the longer this stretches out, that there's a slight chance that if they can figure out, because they're severely over the cap, I believe. If they can figure out, but like Dan said, it's like whose line is it anyway with the points don't matter. The salary cap isn't real. So they can figure out a way to do bonuses and move money around. I could see a scenario where Drew Brees does come back.
Interesting. Yeah, it'd be tough to think of that. They're almost $75 million over the cap,
Wow.
Which is the most in the league. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's slim to none, but right, exactly.
Just the fact that we haven't heard yet from Breeze. I mean, yeah, it's going to take time, and I think he needs to do some family time and some self digging and figure out what is the best, case of a scenario for him here, right? Because I mean, we already saw that he kind of lost some arm strength, especially on deep balls.
Big time.
I think it's just time. I think it's time for him. So
yeah, I agree with you, Dan. What do you thought? You think there's any chance that Drew Brees comes back for one more last hurrah?
Any chance? I mean, there's probably like a 0.1% chance. I mean, I know it's clear that like you guys said, his skills are eroding now. They don't have any cap room whatsoever to sign him to any kind of legitimate QB deal. So I think it's time to turn the page. I mean, he had a good run there. They got the one Super Bowl out of it. They had a couple chances in a couple championship games, but Jameis just offers more, and especially deep in the deep ball department than Drew does now.
Yeah. Well, let's say Taysom Hill is the quarterback next year and Jameis is gone. What does that do for Kamara's value and Traquan Smith, Michael Thomas if he's back, Troutman? I was looking it up earlier today and I saw an interesting stat. Drew Brees targeted the running back in the mid-20s percent-wise. It was like 24%, something like that. Both Taysom Hill and Jameis were in the low teens. I think it was like 13, 12%. So regardless if it's one of those two guys, I think Kamara is going to take a hit in value. I think he's still going to have that upside. But I think his floor is going to be a lot lower because he's not going to be getting as many dump-offs as he would from Brees. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, just looking at Kamara's stats before the first 9 games before Taysom Hill came in. I mean, he was averaging 4.67 yards per carry. After with Hill, it actually went an increase, 4.74 yards per carry. But the targets is where it really hits, and he was averaging 8.8 targets per game with Breeze, 4.0 targets per game with Hill. So, I mean, that's 50% of reduction, right? So that's some concern there. I don't think we can ignore that at all. Whether or not that's Sean Payton, whether that's his doing with the offense, if it's Taysom Hill's inability to check down because he wants to run it himself, or if it's just Jameis Winston's ability to want to throw the ball downfield as opposed to the dump off, right? It's something that we're going to have to talk about and realize that Kamara may not be as high of a value in redraft, including Dynasty, as he was this year and years past. That's just something that we're going to have to discuss. And there's going to be people who are like, no, he's Alvin Kamara. He's going to be great. He'll be fine. Just you wait. Just trust me. Trade him to me. I'll take him. Right. And I'm on the side that says, no, I think he's going to be a little bit of a liability in terms of value. So, I mean, I have him in Dynasty. I have him as a running back 7, behind other guys, like Barkley, Taylor, Jacobs, even Antonio Gibson I have over Kamara right now, simply because of age. I mean, Kamara's he's only 25, but there's some uncertainty that we're not sure of here with New Orleans in the quarterback position. And we've already seen that he's best as a receiver as opposed to just being a running back, right? So there's a little bit of concern there.
And if it is Taysom Hill, he could take away some goal line carries as well.
Right.
You know, losing those touchdowns. So, that could.
I'm a little leery. I'm a little leery of Kamara's value next year.
So dynasty wise, you'd sell now if you can.
Oh yeah, I would.
Dan,
if you can get a good deal for him, yeah, I would absolutely, because running backs they don't even really last to age 30 anymore, really.
Yeah.
So and before it was age 30. Okay, yeah, you're done. I just think that his value is too good to keep right now. I think you got to sell him. I think you sell him before his value drops. Dan?
Yeah, you guys pretty much, said everything I was going to say. I think that especially in PPR leagues, if Hill is the starter, the lack of PPR targets plus the addition of some goal line vulturing would I think pretty significantly drop his value. We're not talking like something crazy like dropping him out of like in the third round or something like that, obviously, but there would be no way that I would take him anywhere in the first half of the first round of any draft.
Right.
And in Dynasty,
you're buying all the risk.
Yeah, exactly. And in Dynasty, then absolutely you'd have to sell him. And that was the perfect time. He's still, you don't know if Breeze is retiring or not. The quarterback hasn't been, the starter hasn't been announced. So this is pretty much the last time you're going to see Kamara have the max value he's going to have in Dynasty.
Mm-hmm. I'm 100% with you guys on there. And like I've said to you, Dan, multiple times, I'm the type of guy that I would rather sell a year too early than a year too late. So not saying sell Kamara low, or take a low ball offer, but his value isn't going to get any higher than it is right now. And it could very steeply drop off next year. So our guy Mike in the chat is saying, and this is something that Jeff from Going for Two said, his conspiracy theory that Peyton didn't start Winston to keep his price down so they could sign him for cheap. So I don't know if that's the case, and Owen would not be happy with that with his Taysom Hill shares as well. And Marty is digging into me as well in the chat. Yes, Marty, I do believe in Gibson. I had a hard time buying into Gibson with his lack of work in the run game in college, but I learned a little bit of a lesson this year that, don't always buy into the narrative. These guys, he caught a lot of balls as well, and that's today's game for the running backs, especially with his, most leagues are PPR now. If you're able to catch the ball, you're going to be involved, and he could have been so much better if J.D. McKissick wasn't there too. J.D. McKissick got so much work. That's the only thing that does worry me a little bit about Gibson, depending on where he's going in drafts, is McKissick is there again next year. They signed him to a 2-year deal, so I do still think Gibson long term is somebody who I'd like to have, but I could see, McKissick chipping away at his value a little bit next year. Well, let's say that Jameis Winston is the quarterback next year. Is there a number 2 wide receiver that would emerge you would want to have for fantasy purposes? And Dan, we'll start with you on this one.
If Jameis is there, then I would probably take a shot at Traquan Smith, I think. I think that his skill set better aligns with what Jameis can bring to the table. I think that he can serve as kind of like that deep threat that Jameis could get the ball to down the field. Not saying, with the way they spread the ball around with the running backs and the tight end and everything. I don't know if Emmanuel Sanders is going to be back or not, but I would take a shot out on Smith. I think he's going to be really cheap. So for where he's going to go, I wouldn't mind, drafting him as my wide receiver 5-6.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Traquan Smith is kind of overtaking Emmanuel Sanders. Sanders is just getting up there in age, right? And Traquan Smith actually led the entire Saints receiving corps in snaps. So, I mean, he's getting the reps. He knows he's going to be there next year. We know that. And we also know that Jameis likes to throw the ball downfield. And I can see Traquan Smith doing a decent job of doing just that. I mean, this is Michael Thomas's team, right? So once he comes back, he's going to be the lead dog, the alpha dog. But I can see Traquan, having some sort of a niche, especially if Jameis is quarterback and Sean Payton lets him rip and throw downfield and do what he's done before. He may not necessarily do that because that also led to a lot of turnovers. And, they want to try to minimize that. So, but if I had to guess, I would say Traquan Smith as the wide receiver 2 in New Orleans. And also the wide receiver 2 in New Orleans, when Michael Thomas is healthy, is usually not very good. I think I thought I remember seeing a stat on this that the most catches that a wide receiver 2 has had along with Michael Thomas being the wide receiver 1 was like 35 catches. So
he's definitely a target hog for sure.
That's a concern, right? So it may not matter and it may not be fantasy relevant for Traquan Smith, but if there is going to be a guy, yeah, I think it's him. Sanders is 32 going on 32 or so. I'll have to look at his age.
I feel like he's been in the league for 20 years. I feel like he's one of those guys that just it's been here forever. And Owen wants to know.
33. Yeah.
So not exactly a whole lot of upside with Sanders.
Got to get faster on that. I got to find something else for that. For those of you who haven't caught on yet, every time somebody says upside on our show from now on, we're going to drop that on there as well. So Owen from the chat wants to know, can we see Deontay Harris get any work, or is it just going to be more of a special teams guy? He is only 5'6". Jeff, we'll go with you on that one. You think Harris can carve out a role in this offense?
It's possible. I mean, he had more work earlier on in the year as opposed to later. But I like the guy. We talk about Rondale Moore as like Mighty Mouse, right? I mean, that's pretty much what Deontay Harris is.
Yeah.
Can he find a role, a niche in the offense? It's possible. But like I said, the wide receiver 2 isn't even really fantasy relevant. So I don't know.
I'm 5'6", so I can only imagine him going out there trying doing it. So more power to him. It's like Muggsy Bogues back in the day for all you young kids who don't know who that is. Look him up.
Yeah, Muggsy Bogues, 5'3".
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan, what do you think? You think Harris can carve out a role?
I think it's possible. I mean, besides behind Thomas, it's pretty much open up with Callaway there as well. So I mean, if he performs, he could find a role. Like we've been saying, Sanders is getting pretty long in the tooth. So if he can get even some slot work or some work on the outside in addition to his special teams, then yeah, he could be something. But I wouldn't be counting on him to be fantasy relevant until he shows something. I wouldn't be spending any kind of draft capital on him though.
That's a good segue into Michael Thomas. How do you value Michael Thomas next year? You think he can bounce back and be in that wide receiver 1 conversation? Do you think that he's gonna, continue to have injury issues? And it's still a big question mark with who's going to be the quarterback. You think his value changes depending on who the quarterback is? He is slant boy, so I think Taysom Hill and Jameis could hit the slant. Jeff, we'll go with you on this one. What are your thoughts on Michael Thomas next year?
I mean, it's possible for him to be a wide receiver 1. It's definitely possible because he's done it before, but he's also done it before with Breeze. So I think the reason why he kind of slowed off a little bit this year was the injury. I think that's the biggest reason at all. But for dynasty purposes, I have him as a wide receiver 8 behind DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, and CeeDee Lamb even, with DeAndre Hopkins right after him. And of course, there's others too: Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. I didn't mention, but I've got Thomas in that next tier, so to speak. He's 27. He's getting up there in age, right? I mean, right now, we all know this is a younger man's league, and I think that Thomas has probably played his best season. We've seen that, and can he do it again? At least to make a wide receiver 1 type of ranking, that's possible, yes, especially if Winston is his quarterback. If Hill is his quarterback, I am not confident with him at all. And that's another reason for why I'm a little bit skittish on his dynasty ranking, is because we just don't know who the quarterback's going to be yet. So if Winston is quarterback, I might lift him up just a little bit, especially on the redraft side. But yeah, there's a little bit of concern, in my opinion, too, with Thomas.
Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I put him where Jeff has him. I agree. He's not going to be wide receiver 1 anymore. I mean, he still has that
You
kind of
mean the
talent.
wide receiver 1, right?
Yeah, right. The wide receiver 1. Yeah, he still has that kind of talent. I just don't. I think, like Jeff said, we've seen his best season. You know, he's not going to catch 275,000 balls anymore. And I think with Winston, you'll see more intermediate / deep part of the field being used than what Breeze had. You know, Mike Thomas is called the slang king, so I think you'll see less of that if Winston and if Hill's the QB, then it's just going to be a disaster, and I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on that. If Hill's the quarterback, I don't think I'll be touching Michael Thomas. But if it does wind up being Jameis or somehow somebody else, depending on where he is ADP wise, I think he could be a little bit of a value. You know, I remember 2 years ago, that high ankle sprain, it really, you know, it's different for a running back, but it took Saquon Barkley a long time to get back into form. You know, it wasn't until the fantasy playoffs, even though he came back a few weeks before, until he started looking like himself. So, you know, a wide receiver, he still has to have that push off. I think that affected him a lot more. And then did he break his rib or something like that? Didn't he have another injury? And then he punched a teammate and he was out for a few games. So
Right.
I could see him. I don't really want him in Dynasty just because there's so many question marks, like you said, Jeff, at the quarterback position. But I could see in redraft where if he's got a decent quarterback back there, if people are too far off on him, he could wind up becoming a value depending on his ADP. So. And we will roll on to Jared Cook is a free agent. It doesn't look like they're going to bring him back, even though they still have a $2 million cap hit for him, even though he's not even going to be there. What are your thoughts on Adam Troutman? Do you think he can be a fantasy, you know, tight end? That tight end landscape so ugly outside the top. Is he somebody who's worth taking a flyer on at the end of drafts next year?
I mean, he's a possibility, just like anybody's really a possibility. There could be so many just unknowns come into the tight end role that have fantasy relevance, right? But I think we're going to see an improvement, you know, in year 2. How much is yet to be determined. I would say that the best type of ceiling that we could potentially see from him would be 50 catches, 600 yards, and 5 touchdowns, right? That's the best that he could do. I mean, he had 15 catches for 171 yards and 1 touchdown in his rookie year, but we all know that rookie tight ends rarely get any play, right? So, somewhere in between there is kind of where I think he's going to fall. And again, a lot determines on who's quarterback. Is it Winston? Is it Hill? And if it's Winston, I think receivers, including tight ends, will get a little bit of a bump. If it's Hill, I would say the opposite. So Troutman's not necessarily someone I'm going after in Dynasty or, you know, in redraft, maybe as like a tight end 3 in a deep league. I just don't really see. I think he's someone that you could potentially get off of waivers next year in a redraft league if he kind of comes to fruition. So the verdict's not quite out on him yet, and I'm not necessarily buying.
Yep, I'm right there with you. You know, when it comes to tight end, I generally don't spend the draft capital to get one of the top guys. I'm normally the type, I play the waiver wire. I draft a couple of guys. He'd be somebody who I wouldn't mind keeping an eye on, sitting at the end of my bench if I have an extra spot and hoping he blows up. I did that. It worked a few years ago with Kittle. You know, I'm not saying he's going to be Kittle, but that's just how I play when it comes to fantasy. I can't invest the draft capital that it costs for those high-end guys. I just don't. I know it's such an advantage, but like if you did that this year with Kittle or Mark Andrews, who we all thought was going to be a stud this year, then you're really behind the 8 ball. So Troutman, you know, he's somebody who I won't mind keeping an eye on, but he's not somebody that I'm going to be actively targeting. And Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I think I'm not going to use any kind of serious draft capital for him. I might take a flyer in the absolute last round of a draft just in case, you know, especially if I don't get one of like the big, like the Kelsey Kittle tight ends. And yeah, I'll take a shot on him. But, you know, with the quarterback so uncertain, it's hard to gauge value pretty much on any of the pass catchers or running back in that system. Plus, we don't know what kind of offense if Jameis or Taysom takes over full time, what kind of offense the Saints are even going to have. What is Sean Payton going to do? Are they going to feature the tight end at all? They might not. So it's just there's so many question marks that on talent, and if Cook leaves, then on opportunity, I might take a flyer on him at the end of the draft. But otherwise, it's not gonna bother me if I don't get him.
Looking back at the chat, our buddy Jeff Bell says that came up when I was talking about how I don't spend a lot of draft capital on tight end. He said, so apparently I am silly and that I, quote unquote, it might win your league, so why do it? So, Jeff, what's your take? When it comes to tight ends, do you spend draft capital on a guy like Kelsey or Kittle, or I think Waller is in that conversation now, or are you the type to really try to hit some later?
Well, definitely if it's a tight end premium league, then yeah, I will try to get a top 3, top 4 tight end. If not, I generally try to wait, and maybe get a guy like a Jonnu Smith who really kind of catapulted a little bit this year. Irv Smith is someone that I have an interest in.
I
that
like
I think
Irv Smith
get
a lot.
Later. So Irv Smith is someone that's on my radar. Yeah, I do like Darren Waller. I liked him this year. A lot of people coming into the year weren't necessarily that high on him. Just because of the situation with the Raiders and such, right? They didn't think that he could repeat. And I understand that, right? Because you want to show that you can do it more than once, and we didn't see that yet with Waller. But I was high on him. I thought that he was going to be a huge piece to their offense, which he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I also knew that they didn't really have a go-to name at wide receiver, so he was their target leader. So. I was all in on Waller. Luckily, he panned out for me in a lot of ways. Yeah,
our guy Owen in the chat is still high on Herndon, which I feel like he's turning into that guy that everybody's always high on and just never pans out. Maybe a different quarterback will be a different story if they move on from Darnold, but.
Yeah, or just literally moving on from Gase might
yeah, that's true. The Gase effect is definitely a real thing.
I think that Chris Herndon has value. He's someone that is going to be an interesting target for teams, dynasty teams, who are looking for some sort of a tight end who can come through, right? I mean, he's only 24, and heck, we've seen tight ends who are drafted at age 24.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, he still has
maybe a good post-type sleever.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time to develop still, and it's possible it could happen with the Jets. Hopefully it does. But if not, I mean, he could be traded, or he can go elsewhere. I think his deal is next year. I think not this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, Herndon is someone that I still have some interest in as far as dynasty leagues are concerned.
And speaking of Waller, Owen brings up a good question. It's about the Raiders. Do you think that if Juju winds up with the Raiders, will that affect Waller's value much?
Yeah, I mean, it could. It definitely could. We may not see the best seasons out of Waller. I mean, he's not going to necessarily lead the team in targets again. That's not a foregone conclusion if that happens, whether it's Juju or any wide receiver that they bring in as a free agent. But, I mean, I still like Waller. He's still a big piece of the offense. They know what he can do. They know what he's capable of in terms of production. So I don't think that's necessarily going to go away, but volume is what could drop.
Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, if Juju goes to the Raiders, I think that definitely impacts Waller negatively. He's that big, over the middle of the field type guy, which is pretty much Juju's wheelhouse as well. So it won't completely destroy his value, but I think it would definitely take a hit. And as someone that in the Upside League took Kelsey and Kittle back-to-back in the second and third round, I truly believe that not having to worry about trying to find that sleeper that everyone wants this year, whether it's Ingram, Herndon, Hawkinson. I feel better just plugging Kelsey in and never having to worry about it.
Yep, I'll give you that. It's different in the Dynasty League, and I missed that upside because I was texting my wife. My dog is barking to go outside, and I was on mute, so I hit it, but you couldn't hear me. But since I just said it, there's one for the upside. So we will move on to Jeff's team, the Carolina Panthers. The $1 million question: who is going to be the quarterback for the Panthers next year?
That sure is $1 million question. It's a huge question. I mean, Carolina, you have to look at it this way. Carolina was ready to give up quite a bit for Matthew Stafford, right? Their 8th overall pick, a 5th round pick, plus Teddy Bridgewater. That's actually not a bad deal. I would have been okay with that. But Matthew Stafford said, you know what? I want to go to Los Angeles. Or at least Kelly Stafford said she wanted to go to Los Angeles. And that, I get it. I can understand that, right? That's a nice draw. But the fact that they were interested in Stafford makes me think that they're interested in upgrading the position. And could they trade for Deshaun Watson? Yeah, they could, but it's going to cost them 3 first-round picks. And, Carolina doesn't have a whole lot of cap space, about $18 million. They get maybe an additional $9 million if they release K'Wan Short before June 1st. But they have needs in other areas. They have needs at offensive line, at cornerback, at linebacker. So, I mean, they have needs that these got to be filled by draft picks. And if they trade for Watson, sure, that's great. That's a nice pick up there, right? You're satisfying one need with that, though. You're not helping your other needs, especially on defense, which is where they really struggled this past year. Offensively, they were a playoff team. Defensively, not so much. Yeah. I mean, they lost Kuechly, right? They lost their captain of the defense. They don't really have a veteran corner. Jeremy Chin played great as a safety, but even it was a little bit. There's some limitations in coverage for him. Brian Burns is an excellent edge rusher, but they just got to put it all together, and they have to be able to play a defense that defensive coordinator Phil Snow wants them to play, because they were doing a lot of soft zones because they didn't want to get beat, and they didn't have the talent to stay with the receivers of the NFC South, and we know who they are. So they had to kind of play a prevent defense, or if you want to say a soft zone, or a bend but don't break type of defense, and that's not what they want to play. That's what they had to play because of their experience, lack of experience in those areas. So if they go on Watson, they don't have the opportunity to develop other players. So what do? What can they do? They could take a quarterback at pick 8, but who's going to be available then? I'm thinking, and this might be the best option, is to move up to 3. This is where the Dolphins are. And the Dolphins trade down to 8, right? And they can target one of the quarterbacks that aren't picked overall. You've got Trevor Lawrence, you've got Justin Fields, you've got Zach Wilson. One of those will be available at 3 if they decide to move up. And I think they either have a guy that they like, or they're going to determine who that guy is that they like. If they find a guy that they really like, I think they should go for it and move up to 3 to potentially get him, unless they go up to, well, I don't think that's going to happen, to 2 with the Jets. It could, but I think the Jets are probably looking for a quarterback as well. Those are some options. And of course, then there's also the status quo of keeping Teddy Bridgewater and perhaps drafting a guy like Mac Jones, who they saw in the Senior Bowl, because Carolina was one of the coaching staff in the Senior Bowl and was able to work with Mac Jones. So there's that. So there's a lot of possibilities there for quarterback. Now the question is, what's new GM Scott Fritter going to do? And your guess is as good as mine there, but I think he's going to do something, and it might involve moving up. So, wow, it was winded, wasn't it?
Hey, that's what, you're a Panthers fan. That's your team. You would have more expertise than most. So our guy Jeff in the chat wants to know maybe Trey Lance. Any thoughts on that?
One good thing about Trey Lance is he's only 20 years old, so he could. They could pick him. Perhaps maybe he's available at 8. I don't know. I mean, we've yet to see how the draft is kind of going to unfold and on teams and where they think they might go. But could they take Trey Lance? They could, and they could sit him for a little bit, right? And maybe have a competition between him and Bridgewater. And they could afford to do that, because Lance would be on the rookie deal, and Bridgewater, I think, is at $21 million, which isn't too bad. And he's got one more year on his contract. So that's a possibility. Trey Lance is someone that, in my opinion, is a little bit lower than, say, Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. But I mean, that my thoughts on that could change as the next month or two roll around. But that's a possibility.
Dan, what do you think? Who's going to be under center for the Panthers next year?
I think it's going to be Bridgewater. I think that, unless they give up significant draft capital to go all the way up to 3, which is a possibility. But then, to your point, Jeff, they're not going to have that many more picks to address other needs. I think they already have Bridgewater signed for another year. Maybe draft a Lance, or maybe do a smaller move up if one of the other quarterbacks drops. I don't think that mortgaging multiple years of first rounders plus other things for Watson, and then not a lot to build around him, it's going to be what's best for the franchise in the long term.
I've just got this gut feeling that as aggressive as they were for a guy like Stafford, who's older, I feel like they want to make a big splash. McCaffrey, although he's not that old, he's got a lot of miles on his legs. Feel like they think that they can win in the next year or two. And like Jeff said in the chat, the marketing to bring Deshaun Watson back to Carolina, a few hours away from Clemson would just be unreal. I've just got this gut feeling. I don't think it's the best move for the team, like you said, Jeff. But I've just got this feeling that Watson's going to be a Panther. I just feel like they're aggressive. They want to make that big splash. Who knows how many years McCaffrey's going to have left with the miles he's got on his legs. I think they're going to want to go for it now.
Also, there's a quarterback in Philly that's available if you want to trade for him. He's cheaper than Watson. Just saying.
Yeah, or there's the Trubisky situation, right? Went to North Carolina, could potentially return to the state. I actually like Mitchell Trubisky. I just think that he's kind of gotten the short end of the stick in Matt Nagy's offense with the Bears. He led
him to the playoffs. Granted, Nick Foles was mixed in there a good bit.
Yeah, but. There's a stigma associated with him, right? But we've seen him have 5 touchdown pass games. He's done that in the NFL.
Yeah. Against me in fantasy, I lost to the last place team because he had Mitchell Trubisky, and he had those 5 touchdowns against me. That they were all like in the first half too, weren't they? I think that one game a couple years ago.
Close to it or something. But Joe Brady's offense. What the issue with Teddy Bridgewater is, he's great between the 20s, but he can't produce in the red zone. And perhaps there was a little bit of. You could say that because Christian McCaffrey was out, he only played 3 games, that was why the red zone kind of struggled. But Bridgewater has always kind of had some struggles in the red zone, and he scored a couple touchdowns on his own rushing. But for whatever reason, he's just kind of struggled in the red zone. And if he can overcome that, I think he's a much, much better quarterback. But I think Carolina's looking to upgrade.
Yeah, I'm definitely with it. And Bridgewater's a guy, he's solid. If they had a dominant defense, I could see him making a deep run in the playoffs, but he's not the type of guy that's going to be able to elevate the offense and take him on his back and, lead him to the promised land. Owen wants to know, do you think there's a chance that the Falcons try to move up to 3 to secure and get a quarterback and the heir apparent to Matt Ryan?
I don't think so. I don't think the Falcons are going to take a quarterback, not this year. At least not in the first round, if they do. I think they're stuck with Matt Ryan. They can't trade him. They can't release him because that cap hit of like $40 million is just too big. Come on. So Matt Ryan's going to be with the Falcons next year. That's my call. And why would they take a quarterback that early if he's not going to be able to play and they lose a year out of eligibility on the rookie deal?
Could ask Green Bay the same question, but
touche. I love that.
But I'm with you there.
That needs a ding anyway. That comment needs a ding.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh, I'm gonna have to figure something else out. That's not working. So
okay, there we don't go. But anyway, no, I don't think Atlanta is going to take a quarterback. I really don't. It doesn't make sense for them to do so with new GM Terry Fontenot, who is a scout. With the Saints, right? That's what his background is. Maybe he knows something about a quarterback that he can perhaps get a little bit later on, in like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, even. Like who knows? We'll find someone. Maybe he's so aware of someone who could come in and perhaps be that possibility. But if he does that, then they're also thinking, well, what do we do next year? So I don't know. I don't. And they're not going to take a running back at pick 4. I could see them trading down or perhaps maybe offensive line. Offensive line is always the fallback, right? Every team needs offensive line, especially tackle. So, I I don't know. I just don't see them taking a quarterback. That's just my take. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the Falcons yet, but we obviously have.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to take a quarterback.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think they're still rolling with Ryan for a few more years. I could see a scenario where they take, like you said, a guy that the GM really likes and a project that.
Now next year they could release Matt Ryan, and I think it's only a $17 million cap hit, much better than 40.
Right, that's a big difference.
I think is what it is. It's crazy, depending on if they release him or traded him, and it depended on the date. I don't know all that, but yeah, I think that Ryan's going to be there in 2021.
Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they release Ryan this year. Admittedly, this is a long shot, but what I think could happen is if the top 3 picks end up being QBs, I think the Falcons might stay at 4 and then take Trey Lance, and then groom him for a year and then release Ryan next year. That'd be the only way I think they might take a quarterback. I don't think they will. I think they should take the tackle from Oregon if the top 3 go QB.
Sewell.
But yeah, Sewell. But that's the only out in left field way that they might take a QB that early. I wouldn't recommend it though.
Yeah, I mean they'd lose the 5th year option on Trey Lance, but Lance is only 20, so that's a possibility. I actually, as a Panthers fan, I'd like to see them do that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a move for next year, but and what happens if the Jets decide to keep Darnold and then the Dolphins take a wide receiver at 3, don't move down. Maybe that's a spot that the Panthers could try to trade up and land a Zach Wilson. I know it's in division; it'd be hard.
Multiple teams try to trade up.
Yeah, if it doesn't go, Trevor Lawrence is the only quarterback that goes in the top 3, things could get real interesting with that 4th pick, and they could trade back and get some much needed draft capital that they need. So, our guy Marty wants us to break down the very high profile signing of Taylor Heineke to the Washington football team. And that's probably all we need to say about Taylor Heineke signing with the Washington football team. But unless Jeff,
Taylor Heineke may have given the Buccaneers their hardest fight in the playoffs.
Yeah, he looked good.
If you think about it.
You think that they're going to roll with him next year?
Absolutely. I do. I think he's got moxie, and I think that he's the typical type of quarterback that Ron Rivera is going to kind of lean on. We saw what he was able to do.
The team really rallied around him too.
He's going to battle with whoever else is there, but I think he's got the ability, just like as anyone else. It just depends on what can he show the coach, what can he show the staff, what can he do. It's a possibility. It's a strong possibility. It also just depends on who else is there.
Yeah, and that defense, they could, if they decide he can do just enough, and they want to invest in the defense and other places, maybe they do decide to roll with them. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that if they can upgrade elsewhere, that they'll keep them.
Going back to the Falcons, Owen said he just recently traded for Ridley. That in the back of his mind, he thinks that he would be a nice stack with Fields at the 102. You never know. It depends on what the draft starts with the Jets, whether they decide they want to stick with Darnold or if they want to trade down. That's really going to have a lot of dominoes fall once that decision is made. Who goes to? Somebody tries to trade up to 3 to get a quarterback. It's a lot of different ways that can go.
People now have Wilson ahead of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 2 and 3 are going to be pandemonium, but there's going to be something that happens that none of us see coming, and it's just going to throw everything into.
It always happens.
Always, yeah.
Right.
The NFL draft is very rarely chalk or anything close to it. So we'll go into the wide receivers for the Panthers. Both Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson really came out of, I wouldn't say nowhere, but I don't think anybody saw him being as productive as he was. He had flashes with the Jets, but again, it's the Jets and Adam Gase, so he likes to take talent down. DJ Moore, I got to say, he was a disappointment for where he was being drafted. If they would have used him properly, he would have been fine, because when he got the ball in his hands, I know you know this, Jeff, as a Panthers fan, he looked fantastic. I didn't have a lot of DJ Moore last year. I felt he was being overdrafted. Just, he had to perform like he did 2 years ago. He had to make a huge leap to pay off where his ADP was this past year, in my opinion. But between those two, in Dynasty, DJ Moore's ADP currently, according to fantasyfootballcalculator.com, is wide receiver 9. Robbie Anderson's is wide receiver Dynasty perspective. At those ADPs, Dan, we'll start with you first on this one. Who would you rather have in Dynasty? Wide receiver 9 for DJ Moore or wide receiver 38 for Robbie Anderson?
This is tough. As someone that did draft DJ Moore high last year and having sunk with that ship, it's tough. I think that it's hard because Robbie Anderson had a good year. I don't know if he can keep that up consistently. It's going to be a lot. Does Curtis Samuel stay? Who's the quarterback there? There's a lot of question marks. I think in terms of draft capital, I'd probably lean towards Robbie Anderson because he's cheaper. But I wouldn't be surprised if DJ Moore bounces back and has that closer to year that we thought he'd have this year. But for me, I would go Anderson, even though he is also 4 years older than DJ Moore. I just as someone that was hurt by DJ Moore, I can't get hurt again. So Robbie Anderson.
You got to be able to move past in fantasy. You can't be a lover scorned. I have that same problem, so I don't blame you. Jeff, what about you? Would you roll with DJ Moore at 9 or Robbie Anderson at 38?
Well, the value at 38 for Robbie Anderson seems pretty decent for Dynasty. Now, what is Robbie Anderson's value going to be when Christian McCaffrey comes back full time? I think that's going to drop off. And if anything, DJ Moore will stay where he is. I mean, Moore only had 4 touchdowns last year, but he had 8 games of 90 yards or more. I mean, that's pretty impressive right there. Not many receivers can say that. So he's going to be a fixture of that offense. He will. I think he will be more so than Robbie Anderson, even though Anderson had 90-something catches. The quarterback, whoever the quarterback is going to be, will also kind of dictate that. But the value for Anderson is pretty good there, but at the same time, his could drop off, whereas I think Moore could increase. So I almost kind of lean Moore here, and I'm on the fence. I could go both ways. I could argue both ways. But I think I'd rather have Moore with the upside as a receiver.
It won't work anymore. I blew it. So,
and as a receiver, an offense that I think is on the way up. So I would go with Moore. I definitely would go with Moore in redraft. Definitely.
Yeah. The redraft ADP, DJ Moore is at 31 and Robbie Anderson is at 34. That just goes to show you how you've got to be able to have a different mindset when you go into drafts when it comes to redraft versus dynasty, because 31 for DJ Moore is just unreal. I would take him there 100 times out of 100. There's no question whatsoever. Especially, go ahead.
There's also 4 years difference between them. I mean, Moore's 23, Anderson's 27. So, and as far as dynasty is concerned, I always kind of lean towards that younger receiver. Yeah.
Where do you have DJ Moore, if you know off the top of your head, in your dynasty wide receiver ranks?
In dynasty, what do I have him? 13th, right behind Jamar Chase.
Oh wow, that's
he's
seen a lot of
Chase and ahead of Brandon Ayuk.
Okay, I've seen a lot of people, some people talking that they're not too high on Jamar Chase, but I think that they're going to be sadly mistaken when he. I think recency bias, especially in fantasy football, is a hell of a drug because people just forget how much of a study was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, I know you got excited. You love you some Jamar Chase.
Oh yeah. It's future Philadelphia Eagle Jamar Chase is what he will be.
You better hope so. I don't know. I'd take him at 11 if he fell to the Giants. So.
I'm not going to follow the Giants. Stop it. But I think that
I got it back. We're good.
There we go. I think, like you said, he opted out this year. It wasn't like he got hurt. He's literally been training for the NFL for an entire year. So I think that people forget that. People don't realize, Devontae Smith had a fantastic, Heisman winning year, but Chase was crushing it when he was playing 2 years ago. Yep. So I just think that bias is too much.
Yep. And our guy Owen in the chat said that he saw DJ Moore sold for Calvin Ridley and 2 firsts in the preseason. Oof. That is quite a haul. I give it to you. Yeah. You have any openings? Because I would be more than happy to join that league. And our guy Eric said, out of sight, out of mind for Chase. And you are 100% right. So quickly people forget how good he was.
Same thing with Sage Surratt.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. They all the guys, I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. People, like we were saying, recency bias in fantasy is just out of sight, out of mind. People forget how good these guys are when they don't see them on the field, and then other guys emerge and they knock them down.
Except Christian McCaffrey. We're all expecting him to be Superman.
Well, speaking of which, got 2 questions for you. Christian McCaffrey, is he going to be healthy? I know that's a loaded question. You can't really say. You expect Christian McCaffrey to return to somewhat of a full season and be healthy. And does Mike Davis warrant a roster spot?
Mike Davis definitely warrants a roster spot. Now, whether that's with Carolina or not, is yet to be determined because he's a free agent this year and he may want to, test some other waters. But it was Joe Brady's offense that gave him the opportunity. So maybe they do keep him, right? Maybe they sign him for a decent deal and maybe he'll want to stay. I think he does want to stay. He likes Carolina. He's someone who's kind of prominent on Twitter, on social media. So we see his posts all the time. They're hilarious. But Christian McCaffrey, though, I think that he is he's just the offense. I mean, he's going to be the same role. That's what they got him for, right? That's what they have. Joe Brady is running all these plays designed for him or for what am I trying to say? Decoys, right? In the offense, because the defense is paying so much attention to McCaffrey. So when he's on the field, he's a huge piece. And we're just going to continue to see that. I don't think that we're going to, see a drop off in production. Hopefully he stays healthy. And it was just a fluke. I know he's literally just biting at the opportunity to get back.
Dan, what are your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey for next year?
I think that obviously we have to assume he's going to be back healthy. He does leave me a little leery, though. I think that with the kind of injury he had and just the amount of work he's had over the past, 2-3 years, he's pretty much been the Panthers offense for the most part. So I think that while he comes back healthy, I wouldn't be surprised, if they, try to run him into the ground again, what's going to happen health-wise. Obviously, I don't wish, bad health to anyone. I'm just as a fantasy guy, I don't know if I'm going to want to risk having that kind of injury completely derail my season.
Well, he had a nice sabbatical.
Yeah, he did. That definitely helped this year. I think coming back and like Dan said, as I said earlier, I'm the type of guy I would prefer to sell a year too early than too late. So from Dynasty, I know a lot of people won't agree with this. I would be looking to sell Christian McCaffrey only, if you're set up to win next year, that's a different story. But his value is not going to get any higher than it is now, especially coming off, an injury. He's quote unquote healthy. They're looking to upgrade in the offense at the quarterback position. There's a lot of different ways that it could go wrong and him not return the same value that he's had. What if they do take their foot off the gas pedal with him, and if they re-sign Mike Davis or another running back and give them just a little bit more work? What if he does get injured again? It's not anything to do. Christian McCaffrey is one of the best running backs in the league. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not trying to say that he's not good, but I could see multiple different scenarios where he doesn't live up to his draft capital. And for me, I want the least amount of risk when it comes to that. When it comes to redrafting your first round pick or Dynasty, the guy who you're expecting to be your number one stud. So for me, if you could get a haul for Christian McCaffrey, I would not be opposed to getting rid of him from a Dynasty aspect.
Would you take Kamara in a first round pick for him?
Kamara and a first round pick? Yeah, I think I would. I think straight up, I would still roll with CMC, but if I could get a first round pick as well, yeah, I think I would definitely take that.
Mm-hmm. I would take McCaffrey in that. I would sell Kamara and a first for McCaffrey easily.
Okay.
I would do that.
It depends on where. If it's an early first, not a late first,
Yeah.
104 and before that, I would do it. But after that, then I would pause. So, Dan, what do you think? What would you do?
Oh yeah, I would take Kamara in the early first, 100%. I think as a McCaffrey owner in Dynasty, this is what I'm facing right now is.
I'd flip Kamara too after that. But.
Exactly. Yeah. Like does running backs don't last forever, especially with the kind of workloads that he has. He's going to drop off the cliff eventually. So at what point are you comfortable selling him? I would definitely sell him for
not
Kamara.
give him away by any means. It would take a solid off,
Yeah, no, you're going to have to pay for him 100%.
But last year, 2 years ago, he was all but untouchable. You would have to get a king's ransom. And
yeah.
I feel like I've taken that step off the pedestal when it comes to McCaffrey's value.
Especially to your point in redraft, Jay. You're going to have to take him with the 101. Right. I mean, there's no way he lasts after that. So, I mean, with the first pick, I would want someone that is. I mean, there's obviously no sure things, but with little, you're pretty much asking him to be the number one fantasy player, taking him that high. So I would prefer someone with a greater chance of doing better.
Our guy Owen said he's a little concerned about no combine. He's pulled off 8 first-round picks in his home league. So that's pretty impressive. So you pretty much have anybody you want in the first round, but I think you get a couple of studs in there. I think you'll be quite all right. So
don't worry about missing the combine. They're still going to have the pro days. You're still going to get, and I mean, just watch the college tape. I mean, the combine's great, but no one is running in shorts in the NFL in a straight line. So don't put too much stock in.
The combine for me is more of the NFL trying to have some sort of entertainment year round, something that everybody can talk about, put on TV, watch NFL Network. It's important, don't get me wrong, but pro days will do the same thing.
It's like Valentine's Day for Hallmark, right?
Right, exactly. 100%. 100%. Or we will roll. We're actually running a little long, so we will roll through the Falcons pretty quickly. We did discuss the quarterback position with them. I do have a couple of name games set up. So, Jeff, I'm sure you know how a name game would work, don't you?
Enlighten me.
So basically, we're going to start with Matt Ryan, and then I'm going to say the name of another player, and then you tell me who you would rather have. Very simple.
Okay.
Just comes to, and
we're talking dynasty here.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. So for Matt Ryan, let's say, we'll say redraft, because he's not really somebody that you're going to target when it comes to dynasty. So next year, redraft 2021, Matt Ryan or Tua Tagovailoa.
Matt Ryan.
Dan?
Matt Ryan.
Yep, clean sweep on there. If he is named the starter next year, Taysom Hill or Matt Ryan?
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan.
I would hesitate just because that rushing floor is pretty nice, but I'm with you guys there. I'm going to lean Matt Ryan. Super Bowl champion Tom Brady or Matt Ryan? Chris Godwin comes back.
Brady.
I'll probably go with Brady too. The avocado man.
Yeah. That video was hilarious. What the avocado? What do you say? The avocado gin or vodka or something like that?
I don't know.
Avocado tequila.
Tequila. That's what it was. Yeah. Did you see that video of him stumbling off the boat?
Yes.
He said that was the avocado tequila. So, Matt Ryan or Matthew Stafford? Matt Ryan or Matthew Stafford?
Stafford.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning Stafford there. I think he's going to be a good fit with that Rams offense.
And I think they're going to sign a deep threat, maybe reunite with Marvin Jones. I know he was tweeting that he wanted to go there, especially if they pull off a move like that. Rams could be real dangerous next year. Mm-hmm. And then, Dan, you're going to really like this one. If he is named the starter next year, Jalen Hurts or Matt Ryan?
I abstain from this question.
All right, Jeff, let's go with you and we'll get back to Dan.
Oh, man. There is a lot of fantasy upside with dual threat quarterbacks. So
got to get faster at that.
Lean Hurts here.
I'm with you. I'm going to go, they showed the stats, Lamar Jackson 2 years ago, his 4 games that he played versus Jalen Hurts. Now, not saying that Jalen Hurts is going to be Lamar Jackson, but his stats were better than Lamar Jackson's final 4 starts in 2019. So, like you said, in fantasy, when it comes to the quarterback position, that rushing upside offers a nice safe floor. So, if he throws a couple touchdowns, has 50 yards on the ground, that's almost a touchdown. So I'm going to go Jalen Hurts there pretty easily for me.
I agree because I let you guys go first. I think that if Hurts is named starter, he'll have a solid cast around him. No, he'll have Sanders, Goddard, Jamar Chase is going to be there. So I mean, so he'll have the rushing floor, and he'll be able to throw. I mean, the new coaching staff there, they'll be able to scheme an offense around him. They can basically build it from the ground up, and he can learn it there. And I think that he will surprise a lot of people come into this year if he's named the starter.
I'm with you guys on that, and that's the last one I got for Matt Ryan. So we will do a name game, Calvin Ridley, and we will say this is for dynasty purposes. So Calvin Ridley or Keenan Allen, Jeff?
I've got Keenan Allen ahead of Ridley.
No, I'm with you there too. I think he's in for a big season next year with old Herbert, who looks like he's 12 years old, but he can sling the ball. Mm-hmm. Dan?
I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why so? You got any reasoning behind that, or just because?
No, I think he's a little bit younger than Allen. I think that Julio's on the decline, so I think he's going to be the number one in Atlanta sooner rather than later. And, the Falcons love slinging the ball around. So I think that Calvin's going to be a really big wide receiver target hog in Dynasty going forward.
Okay. Calvin Ridley or A.J. Brown?
A.J. Brown. Easily.
A.J. Brown.
Yeah. A.J. Brown's my wide receiver too.
Who's your one?
Jefferson.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Only because he's 21 years old, and we've already seen that he can do everything. So
he's a stud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. I love A.J. Brown. I'm with you too. He's up there. He's definitely in my top three. Mm-hmm. Mike Evans or Calvin Ridley?
I've got Evans by 1 over Ridley. Now, keep in mind, Evans has 7 straight years of 1,000 yards receiving. I mean, that says a lot right there. Yeah. Is he going to have a drop off? He could. If they don't sign Godwin, he's going to be the man. I don't know. I have Evans over Ridley. Evans is 27. Ridley's 26. The quarterback situation is kind of uncertain after this particular next year, right? But for both teams. But I've got Evans. I think he's just a little bit more of a talent than Ridley, especially in the red zone.
Dan?
Yeah, I think it's close for me. I'd take Ridley over Evans. I think Ridley's a little more consistent week to week than Evans is. I mean, Evans will have some weeks where he just does absolutely nothing. And if Godwin leaves, to Jeff's point, he'll be the guy and he'll get all the cornerback one attention. So I think that it's close, but I would go Ridley.
All right. Allen Robinson or Calvin Ridley?
Does Allen Robinson stay in Chicago?
No. Allen Robinson actually has a competent quarterback next year.
I would take Ridley over Robinson.
Dan?
Ridley's got 1 year on him. We don't know where Robinson's going to go. Maybe he takes the money, like the Jets, and the quarterback situation is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you would think that he would go to a team with a strong quarterback because that's all he's had is, subpar quarterbacks in Jacksonville as well.
And he was live tweeting too during the Super Bowl that he wants a ring. So I'm with you. I think that he's going to wind up somewhere that with a solid quarterback.
And my view on him could completely change once we figure out who his quarterback's going to be.
Yeah.
So Allen Robinson with Sam Darnold, I take Ridley. Allen Robinson with Deshaun Watson, I take Allen Robinson.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think Allen Robinson with Deshaun Watson, you take him over a lot of people. So that definitely changes things dramatically. Last one for Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs or Calvin Ridley. I know that hits home a little bit for you with Buffalo.
I've got Diggs over Ridley. I have Diggs just above Jamar Chase. So I've got Diggs as wide receiver 10 dynasty.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I'm with you. I think people forgot how good Diggs was. I don't know why Minnesota wouldn't feed him the ball. Granted, that's a rare NFL trade. That was a win-win. It worked out for both teams because they were able to get Jefferson. But I'm with you. I think Diggs is a stud, and obviously he and Josh Allen have a very close relationship. They're probably the best bromance in the NFL right now, I'd have to say. Dan?
Yeah, Diggs. Diggs was a really good surprise this year. Everyone was questioning if Josh Allen was a good enough quarterback to get in the ball, and we all saw what happened. So definitely Diggs over Ridley.
All right. Well, that's all we're gonna do for the Falcons, and we're gonna move on. We'll just roll through these quick. Jeff, I know you said you had some, so we're just gonna let you drop yours. Who are some players you're targeting in 2021 from this division, or anywhere, and players you're fading in 2021?
Well, one player that I'm targeting is whoever Atlanta gets at running back, because I think that's going to be a running back that's going to have some upside in the league. So I'm on that, especially if it's one of the top 3 backs, right? With Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and Javonte Williams, in my opinion. So I'm looking at all 3 of those guys as guys to target, especially Javonte Williams, wherever he winds up. I like the fact that there's a little bit of uncertainty on Aaron Jones right now. So he's someone that I'm targeting because people are thinking, oh, he's out. He's going to go to Miami or something, right? What if Green Bay decides to keep him? How about that? I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I think Aaron Jones is just a good running back, period. So he's someone that I'm targeting. I already mentioned Justin Jefferson as my top dynasty receiver, so I like him. I'm all in on him. I like T. Higgins. I think he's going to be good, especially with Joe Burrow. That connection is going to be a good connection for a long time. Brandon Ayuk is going to be good, in my opinion. I think he's a better fit for the team than Deebo Samuel. Now, who's going to be the quarterback for the 49ers? That's yet to be determined. Is it going to stay with Garoppolo?
Kirk Cousins, if they pull off that deal.
Right. So there's some uncertainty there. Who else? Whoever the running back is going to be in Seattle, I think, is a target. So lots of options. I like James Robinson in Jacksonville. However, Jacksonville has a lot of picks. They could easily get a running back because they're like, well, who do we pick? Let's get a running back. And, that running back turns into someone who's pretty good. And then that running back then takes some carry shares away, So I still like Robinson. Robinson's only 22. We know he's capable of doing everything, right? From running the ball, receiving the ball, scoring touchdowns. He's capable. So Robinson's right up there with me, as is Antonio Gibson. So I don't know. Those are just some of the guys. I'm just literally, I don't even have anything written down on these guys off the top of my head here. But and I'll let you talk because I'm sure you have some as well, and Dan as well.
Dan, you have anybody off the top of your head who?
I'm targeting Hayden Hurst in Atlanta. He wasn't talked about much this year, but he was a top 10 tight end in fantasy. I think with Julio on the downswing, you could see him get a lot of targets next year. I like Curtis Samuel if he stays in Carolina. I think that Joe Brady knows how to use him really well. I think he's really underrated as both a runner and a catching the ball, so he has some good PPR upside there. And Tyler Johnson over in Tampa. If Godwin doesn't come back, I think Johnson is going to take over that spot. Fingers crossed. And if he does, then he's going to be in line for a lot of work there. So those 3 off the top of my head is who I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I'm going to be, if he resigns, I'm going to be looking to get some Godwin depending on where his ADP is. He got hyped up. He was another one like DJ Moore that because of his good season, his ADP kept going up and up and up, and he would have had to repeat the career year that he had the year before in order to pay that off. So I could definitely see him falling down ADP wise. And as we all know, it's all about value where you're able to get the guys. So I could see him. DJ Moore is another guy that I would like, especially if they upgrade the quarterback position. That 2 guys that I could see outperforming their ADP. And then, like I was saying earlier, if he's going early, some people, I'm sure, Jeff, you won't agree with this either. I'm probably fading CMC next year just because of where you're going to have to get him and the risks. That's the thing. It's not that I don't think he's a stud. There's enough question marks for me to not want to take him where you're going to have to take him.
And Dan mentioned Curtis Samuel. Just one thing that I wanted to share about him. We were talking about the Panthers, but didn't mention him. He has improved every year in the league in a number of different categories: receptions, receiving yards, rushes, and rushing yards. Each single year, he's improved. We haven't really seen that since T.Y. Hilton. He was one who did that, for the Colts. But Samuel is definitely someone that I hope Carolina keeps because.
And I saw some rumors that the Giants might go after him because Gettleman's the one that drafted him. So I would be happy with that. So
yeah, that's definitely possible.
I would take him as he's one of those Swiss Army knife guys that you're seeing more and more of those positionless players that are really contributing in the NFL. So
if the Giants take him, that would destroy Sterling Shepard's value.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, true.
It would. But I would much give me Curtis Samuel over Sterling Shepard any day of the week. Although I do like Sterling Shepard, but he's got very limited upside. So, well, with that being said, I had to get that in there one more time. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on with us. I appreciate it. And I believe we talked about it. Are you going to come on when we do our draft day 2 special? I think we talked about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think we've officially announced it, but day 2 of the draft, Dan and I are going to do a live stream. We're going to go from 7 to 10 on April 30th, and we're going to have a lot of different guests. So Jeff is graciously going to be one of those guests with us as well. Thank you again. I appreciate it. We've become, over these past few months, we've become pretty close. So thank you. I was wanting to get you on the show. It finally worked out. So tell everybody where they can find you. Again, for those who weren't on earlier, what you're doing and where they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, you got my Twitter handle right there on the screen at Jeff Haseley. But yeah, you can find my work at footballguys.com because it's the off season and I'm not really doing a weekly article, but I'm doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff, doing rankings, updates, rankings on Dynasty, rookie rankings, at least once a month, if not more. And just looking forward to the draft. I'll probably throw some sort of draft article out there as we get closer. And I also have my own podcast, Carolina Fandom Podcast. So it's all about the fans of Carolina sports, especially the Panthers. So we're going to have some draft analysts and draft scouts, offensive line experts come on the show and just kind of talk about mostly draft prospects and who these guys are and who might be a good fit for the Carolina Panthers. So, yeah. That's my life there in a nutshell. And thanks for having me on. It was
absolutely.
It was fun.
Okay. And we do also have one last thing. We have all our guests tell us one interesting thing about themselves that the fantasy community may not know. So what would that be that some people might know it, but as a whole, the fantasy community may not know about you?
I'm a really big fan of movie scores, like soundtracks and such.
Okay.
Remember the Titans, right? Love that.
Yeah, that's one of the best.
So I'm a big fan of all kinds of movie scores.
Okay.
Love to listen to that kind of stuff.
That's cool. Very cool. Yeah, Remember the Titans, man. It's just that by far is one of my favorite movie soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, right. So is Dances with Wolves. That's another really, really good one.
That's an oldie, but a goodie, 100%. Well, that's going to be it for us. Jeff, again, thank you. Dan, you could have anything else you'd like to add?
No, you can follow me at EagleDanFF on Twitter. I'm currently the Dynasty lead writer over at Going for Two. We're doing a great selection of rookie profiles to get you ready for the draft. I'm also guest writing over at 14 Personnel, doing some Dynasty content for them as well. So check them out.
Yeah. And you can follow me on Twitter at GMenJ, the lead redraft writer for Going for Two, as well as doing a little work over at sleeperwire.com as well. We will be back in 2 weeks with JL Garofalo of Front Yard Fantasy. He is a Deshaun Watson fan, so at least for now, he's still a Houston Texans fan, and we're going to be going over the AFC South. So appreciate everybody tuning in, and have a good night.
Awesome. Thanks.